Well, hello, and very nearly welcome to Identiverse 2021. So I'm Andy Hindle. I have had the honor for the last 7 years of chairing the content committee for Identiverse. And alongside of that, I'm an independent consultant in identity and privacy. I'm on the board of ID Pro. I do a number of other things in the industry. And we wanted to have a little fun this year and do a little experiment and kind of get some of the content committee members together and give you a little bit of insight into some of what we have planned, some of what we have coming up in the conference this year. So we'll talk about this a little bit more, but our overall topic this year is around personal identity, which is both broad and apt, not least because this will be the first opportunity that we've had since we all got together, I guess, in 2019 in DC, Washington, DC, to kind of get, at least a number of us together in the same place. And that's fantastic, really looking forward to that. But we also recognize that not everyone's going to be able to do that. So our other big experiment this year as a conference is that we're running a hybrid event. The events industry as a whole isn't used to doing this, so we're having to learn some lessons and figure some stuff out as we go along. But we think that we're going to be able to have a really meaningful experience, not just for the people that are on site, but also for folks that are attending and presenting virtually, so that there's really some good interaction, between everyone that's there. So today's panel, like I say, is a little bit of an experiment. We haven't done this before, but we thought it might be fun. And in order to not kind of overwhelm it with my own kind of perspective, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it across to my friend and my colleague, Sarah. Sarah's going to introduce herself. She's going to introduce the rest of the panel. She's going to make us all talk about stuff, which I imagine will be very, very difficult for her to do. And we'll see where we go from there. So Sarah, over to you.
Thanks, Andy. That was a joke for those of you who don't know. These are four of the most loquacious identirati you will ever meet. So we should be having a fun time today. My name is Sarah Cicchetti. I run a product team at AWS Identity. I'm also a founder and board member of ID Pro, and I'm leading up our effort to deliver a certification exam this summer. You'll hear more about that at the conference. And I want to go around the circle here and have each of you introduce yourselves and tell us about what the theme of personal identity means to you. And then we'll talk about your tracks after that. So Steve, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Great to be here. Great to be at Identiverse again. I am coming to you from Sydney. The mood lighting behind you is only because the sun hasn't come up yet. I am unfortunately not going to be in Denver, which I'm really bummed by, but I think COVID safety comes first, and so I accept that. Despite the incredible effort that Andy and team have done to make everything safe in Denver, but my travel's restricted. It would have been, I think, Identiverse number 8 for me. My first one was 2013. In Napa Valley. I missed the really early ones. I think that Vittorio is going to take us down memory lane about the really early ones in Keystone in Colorado. And we sort of come back, don't we, to Colorado, come full circle, which is really cool. Look, I run a small business in Sydney called Lockstep. I work around the world in identity frameworks and data sharing and data protection. And my theme is about this big trend that we've had for many years. It actually started, I think, at Cloud Identity in 2013. The shift towards attributes and this interest in attributes and how to break down data. And it sort of sounds fairly dry, but if we talk about personal data, I'll try and make that a bit more lively. Yeah, honored to be part of the track. I've been chairing this track now for a couple of years. Brenda Leong from Washington, DC is co-chair for privacy, ethics, public policy. She can't make it today, or maybe she had the good taste to stay away from this loquacious group. And I'm now going to take a bit of time to look up on Google what loquacious exactly means. Back to you, Sarah.
That's Vittorio. He had to actually learn English, so he knows it, unlike the rest of us.
I know, it's embarrassing, isn't it? People with
repeat
English as a second language is better than people with the first language.
Great, thanks, Steve. Laura, do you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura. This is going to be my. I don't even know how many. I don't even know how many Identiverses this has been. I feel like I've only missed one, And again, and much like Steve, I think was one of the very early ones. I'm the chair of the security track. I've been moderating that track for the last couple of years. My co-chair is a lovely woman named Sarah Roberts, who's also based in Washington D.C. I am with Microsoft. There's a joke about career planning and how you only recognize the progression of a career by looking at it in reverse. And so I started my career very heavily integrated into the identity world. I've now, over the last 2 or 3 years, I've become somewhat identity adjacent. And what I mean by that is I am a product planner inside of Azure Core. And so Azure infrastructure, Azure networking. And one of the first lessons that you learn when you become identity adjacent is that you never actually leave identity. I like to joke that I've never actually worked for Alex Simons, but I've always been one of his PMs. Alex Simons being the director of PM for identity at Microsoft, if folks aren't aware of him. In terms of what personal identity means to me, I think especially in this very weird year, now 18 months of, are you working from home or are you living at work? I think there's a lot of just personal lessons to be learned about how we manage technology, how we manage our personal lives, our personal attributes versus our professional attributes. And I think there's some very timely lessons to learn about what that means when your entire day is spent standing at this desk, whether that be at work or at school or at church or wherever it is that you may be. I am undecided at this point whether I'm going to be physically in Denver or not. I had shot number 2 last week, so I'm super excited about that. So I'm going to see if I can make that travel work. And if not, I will be happy to see you all online. And I will hand back to Sarah.
And Vittorio, do you want to wrap us up for introductions?
By all means. So, buongiorno everybody. My name is Vittorio Bertocci. As you can hear from my accent, I'm here in the Pacific Northwest, where I've been living for the last 16 years. And I work in Auth0 as an architect. And I work also in deployment similar. And in particular for Identiverse, I help with the developer track, and this year also for the architecture and standard track. I cannot really come out with anything particularly smart because such august company already set a bar way too high for me. So I'll just say that the theme of personal identity to me is a tautology, as in what is more personal than identity. Of course, people might say that, yeah, machines can have identities too, but doesn't matter. Like for me, the idea that the identity is personal is really a concept which is pervasive in the zeitgeist today, like all these decentralized stuff that you're hearing, all this thing about experience, all this thing about passwordless, all of this stuff, as in like really looking at what identity means for people. Also, privacy, don't want to go there, but still, that's kind of it. So the baton is back to you, Sarah.
Well, I think we do want to go into privacy because I want to hear what is on each of your tracks that you are excited about. We are all track leads, so we have seen all of the slides and even some of the presentations that are coming at Identiverse. So we have a lot of knowledge about what's going to be good and what's going to be bad. None of it's going to be bad. So I want to hear what you guys are excited about. I can go first. I'm heading up the professional development track, and we have a lot of great seasoned speakers on the professional development track, talking about diversity, talking about certification. But the one I'm most excited about is a first-time speaker. Her name is Tori Meyer, and she's going to be talking about why you need a PM in your identity team to focus on vision and focus on customers. Yeah, exactly. Laura's making a little heart. And she is a stellar speaker and first-time speaker. So I'm really excited about that one. Steve, you're heading up the privacy and ethics track. I'm really curious to hear what's coming there.
Well, we've got a huge range of speakers, some old, some new. I think Tom Smedinghoff might be a first-time speaker at Identiverse, but I've known Tom for 25 years and seen him speak many times on trust frameworks and legality. Tom is like a legend in the dry but incredibly important area of privacy and authentication regulations around the world. He's spearheaded a lot of work with the United Nations forever, and Tom's going to be talking in engineering speak about what we need to know about the law of identity. And Adam Cooper as well from the UK is going to give us a historical perspective of identity. Where have we landed? What do we take for granted? Like Vittorio says, there's nothing more personal than identity. And I think actually that one of the problems that we've got that we grapple with all the time is how rich our field is. And we have fantastic community work, fantastic professional development work that Sarah's talking about. We've got a really close-knit community. I think the 5 of us have known each other probably for 20 years. And Identiverse is a blast. And it mixes all of those different nuances of personal and professional. I think the risk that we have is that when we go back to be professional identity engineers or professional identity architects, we sometimes make our problems so big and so grandiose. And I think that that's why we've been struggling for a while. So I'm going to come back to that personal identity thing. What I think about personal identity is one thing. At work, it's a totally different thing. And I mean that both literally in terms of we all have different walks of lives and we try to keep them separate. But the mental framework that we use for professional identity, I think also needs to be different. And usually it's not. And we Identirati have a really interesting habit of making things complicated. And we're on the cusp of actually some fantastic simplicity. You know, we're breaking identity down into verifiable credentials. We've been talking about attributes for a long time, which is really powerful. And then you talk to a good legal thinker like Tom, and he's going to help us explain what data means, like what is the legal and regulatory basis for data. I just want to wrap up right now by saying that my personal identity is one thing. What I want to be able to do in cyberspace is to let you know what I think you need to know about me. And that's not going to be my life history and my favorite color and, you know, what I had for breakfast at Identiverse in Napa. Now, we all know this. You know, we all know that the urgent problems right now have got to do with control over identity. Who needs to know what about me? And we're about to make that easy at last. You know, we're about to make, I think we're about to make identity as easy as moving our money around. I could go to Denver and I could use any one of a number of smart devices to buy coffee and beautiful beer. I can do that anywhere in the world. I can tap my mobile phone and buy a beer. We should soon be able to tap a mobile phone and prove how old I am, or prove that I'm an Australian citizen, or prove that I've got a COVID vaccination. And, you know, I think the less we talk about identity, the better. I think going forward, when we talk about these personal attributes and verifiable pieces of data, that's really exciting. And I see that across all of the tracks. We're going to get into that in privacy and ethics as well. We're also going to talk about a little bit about AI, and we're going to talk about the identity of IoT and bots. So when you're talking to a bot, how does anybody watching this video know that none of us are bots? So how do you prove that people are human? When do you need to know when somebody's human? You know, what is
I was going to say, it probably doesn't matter.
I think for our purposes right now,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and you know what? It hardly ever matters. And I think that the less personal we make identity, the better.
It's interesting.
I'm just going to add a couple of things on that. Sorry, go ahead, sir.
Oh, I said it's interesting that you use the word complexity, Steve. One of the things that I think is remarkable about Identiverse, as opposed to other conferences, before I was in identity, I was a software developer and worked in healthcare. And so I've been to a lot of technology conferences, a lot of healthcare conferences. And one of the universals is that it's really hard to get time with experts. And when you do, they will spout a lot of jargon at you and try and make you feel stupid so that they look smart. And one of the things I love about Identiverse and about the identity community is that people are so generous with their time. And they are just delighted that you have any interest at all in the spec that they wrote, or in the standard that they worked on, or in the software that they're building, that they will sit down with you and they will explain it like you're 5, and because they're so excited about what they're building and about what we're accomplishing as a community. And that's part of what makes me love this conference and keep coming back year after year, is the simplicity of it.
Sarah, didn't you a few years ago do an Identiverse speech about identity with the 500 simplest words in the language?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 1,000 most common words, but it turns out that 1,000 is not one of the 1,000 most common words, so we called it the 1,000 most common words.
That's right. That was cool, and it really made vivid that point you make about communication and understanding.
Yeah, and I think Identiverse is really, really welcoming to new people, because people are less likely to use jargon, and I have never had anyone at Identiverse try intentionally to make me feel stupid. So I really love the community for that reason. Andy, what were you going to say?
Yeah, well, I see you've added like another 5 things that I need to chime in on, but before I forget it, the thing I was going to say is so privacy, and we've now, as Steve pointed out, kind of added an ethical component to that as well. Privacy is one of those areas that overlaps significantly with identity in the same way that security overlaps significantly with identity. And so we've added progressively year over year a little bit more material on the privacy side, both directly in that topic area, but also kind of infusing, as Steve pointed out, some of the other places. One of the things that I'm really excited about, particularly this year, is the evolution of a relationship that we've been starting to build as a conference with the IAPP. So in the same way that ID Pro is the Association for Digital Identity Professionals, so the IAPP is the Association for Privacy Professionals. And this year, they are helping us by putting together an introduction to privacy. Again, in the same way that historically we've had an introduction to identity, and we'll still have that this year. And I have to say that I always find that really useful for me, because there's so much going on that there's always new, right? It's always an introduction, at least somewhere in the industry, for something. And so this year we've got an introduction to privacy as well, which the IPP are going to help us with. And that's a really exciting addition for us to have. So
that's wonderful. And speaking of security, Laura, what are you excited about on the security track?
Oh goodness, there is so much happening in the security track this year. We are always blessed with a wide range of speakers, some newer speakers, some returning pros that you've heard from a number of times. We have honestly a super broad range of topics. We have everyone from the director of advanced threat research from McAfee is going to be coming in and talking to us. We're going to be talking about all of the things that will allow you to win the buzzword bingo drinking game. We're going to talk zero trust. We're going to talk passwordless. We're going to talk multi-factor authentication and all the things that break as a result of multi-factor authentication. If you remember a talk of mine from about 5 years ago, the punchline is everything breaks because of multi-factor authentication, and it's always my fault. And so we've got we've got all of that. We have to the point of IoT and identities of everything. So moving completely away from the notion of personal identity. We have speakers who are talking about how we can secure all of these bots and things and widgets that are sitting out on the internet with us. Yes, I know. The machines are coming.
We have not been able to do identity of people, and people actually have identities.
Mm-hmm. And now we're going to try and do identity. And now we have to deal with the things.
No, it's a hot mess. Let's not do the identity of things, please.
It is, but we can win the drinking game because we will be saying IoT a lot. And then one session in particular that I was super interested in during the selection process, just because it's very topical this year. We have one speaker who's coming in and talking about the kind of people and processes part of how to do remote onboarding of employees into an enterprise. How long have we been sitting at our desks in our houses?
Yeah.
I have team members that I've hired that I've never met, and they live 2 miles down the road from me. I'm about to go have coffee with one because I'm now 2 weeks post-shot too. Yes. And so, you know, being able to have even those just kind of very pragmatic conversations about how do we manage identity in a very broad and sometimes for unthinkable reasons, physically disconnected kind of world. And so it's going to be great.
Awesome. And Vittorio, I need you to do double duty here. You have both. So let's start with the developer track. What are you excited about on the developer track?
Everything, of course. But developer track, like both tracks, I believe have these salient characteristics that they are really showing their maturity. Like at this point, we have been at this game for a long time, and those tracks are full of people sharing concrete insights on actual problems that they've been working on, and practices, experiences, like lesson learned, and that's fantastic. Like in particular, there is one session that I'm really looking forward to actually see performed, which is one from a guy from Microsoft, Razi Rice. I hope I haven't butchered his name. And he has this really well-structured session on how to use Python for analyzing logs. And that's something that you don't often think of, because like the classic stereotypical components of identity are like the visual parts, but it's hugely important, and it's a cross-cutting concern. And the way in which he talks about it, again, it's clear that this is not like a classic bookish thing in which you read somewhere on a manual something, but who knows if it works in practice. That's clearly something that has been tried and proven. And I love it. It's really great. And then like there are a number of other things, like in particular, there is a session about user journeys, which is very much in line with the theme of personal identity, as in how to create experiences, some of the like more Gestalt considerations about this flow. And then like there are many others about like more of the basics, like of course, as Andy said, we always need introductions because there's new people. And also some of the laws of physics do change because new browsers features, like changes in the laws of physics on which we base our solutions. And so those introductions are not just for new people, but they are also for us to reset the basics. So that's the developer session, the developer track, which is not very large, like few really good sessions.
I'm really looking forward to that user journey one. I'm going to be there in person, so I can only see like, I don't know, 4 sessions or something. So I'm going to have to log into the online portal afterwards and watch all the recordings to see every single session, because that one sounds really great. And
that's
then
a very
the
good
other one
strategy.
you have is architecture and standards.
Yeah,
architecture and standards.
That one is also really interesting, and it's larger. Like there is more stuff. I'd say that the one that I am truly looking forward for is the one that Alex Weiner will do about Solarigate. Like Alex has a unique view. Like he wrote amazing content through the months in which this was happening. Like he's been very helpful with this content to make people understand. I expect he'll have some insider perspective, and he'll reveal, like, I don't know, officially I know nothing, but I think he reveals something really interesting along the way. So that will be like a not to miss session. Like if you are not able to attend in person, most definitely, I think that the link to that video will be circulated and recirculated, because it's just great. And then there's like this long list of other things that are about like big initiatives with like well-known entities that took some of the approaches that until recently were just like experimental, like early deployments of WebAuthn and similar. And now instead we are starting seeing those blossom in actual scenarios, in high profile deployments. And so again, a lot of those things are still coming together. And so the decks aren't fully set in stone yet, but I expect that there will be really interesting, consequential insights to learn. And then among all these, there are a number of classic updates, as in Brian Campbell is going to explore PAR, which is a a new and really important addition in the OAuth world. And so it's like more future looking. And then there will be very hands-on sessions like Alex Chalmer. He's doing a session about things that we are doing in a protocol, federation protocols, which are basically vestigial, kind of like your appendix, or like things that we still have in our body because evolution thought it was useful, but that in today's words, they might even be dangerous. And so he really goes deep, and he has a very interesting perspective. And there's like 15 sessions, so this is just like barely scratching the surface.
Wow, that's great. Okay, and then Andy, you have gotten some amazing keynotes. Can you tell us about those?
We do have a few, yeah. And I'm not going to tell you about all of them because I reckon that most of them are on the website. People can go there, but I have a couple that I'll bring out. Before I do that, there's a couple of tracks that we didn't touch on. So deployments and leading practices is one of the kind of core topics for us, and has been for a number of years. And one of the things that I always enjoy about that, and Vittorio touched on this, right? The practical element of how did I actually deploy this? How did I actually get this to work? How did I actually solve this problem in this context? You know, it's not like the entire agenda is full of that stuff, but it's really important. You know, most of it kind of sits in that deployments and leading practices area. And so we've got speakers from a whole range of different large and small enterprises and different verticals. We've got, alongside of that, a number of folks who are either independent consultants or, you know, experts within a large organization in a particular field. And so that one, you know, that one is really core, I think. And then alongside of that, we've got a slightly smaller area in terms of volume, but you know, very important, I think, to set context, and it kind of leads into some of the keynotes as well. And that's vision, strategy, and futures, right? And so this is an opportunity for us to kind of look out over the next, you know, 3, 5, 7 years and go, well, okay, what large trends are happening that we need to start to think about as an industry, whether we're on the vendor side or, you know, consulting in the space, or actually trying to solve real world problems, right? Where are we going to need to be then? And what implication does that have for me, you know, in the work that I'm doing today? And to a large degree, you know, that's what we try and do in the context of the keynotes as well, right? So as ever, Andre Durand will kick this off. So Andre, as most of you will know, is the CEO and founder of Ping. He's also the founder of Identiverse, the conference. And so he'll kick things off, you know, with a very visionary, I suspect, and very crisp keynote. We've got Richard Bird doing his usual thing. He's got some interesting perspectives on privacy and kind of where that sits, which I think will spark some good conversation. We've got a security panel again, very consistent with what we did a couple of years ago, for those of you that might have seen that. But obviously there's a lot from a topical standpoint to talk about there. So I think that'll be very valuable. We've got ID Pro. Sarah will be talking about some stuff and hopefully making some announcements. We've got Fido. They're going to be talking about some stuff and hopefully making some announcements. And then some diversity stuff as well. A couple of other things that, again, if you dive into the agenda on the Identiverse website, you can kind of have a look and see what there is there. And then I think the one I'm kind of most excited about really is closing. And so we are honestly honored to have Dr. Michio Kaku, the physicist and futurist. And so he's going to close out for us. And I had the distinct pleasure of actually having a briefing conversation with him a few weeks ago. And honestly, it's the best thing that's happened in the last 12 months. Like, I got to sit here in my little box, right, and have a conversation with Dr. Kaku, and it was fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to that, and to kind of the perspective that he'll bring, just to kind of really give us that big context for, you know, for what's going on in the world. The other thing I just want to mention briefly is, again, as many people will be aware, the bulk of the agenda for Identiverse is put together through an open and public call for presentations. That's why we have a content committee. We review all that stuff. We try and select things that are pertinent and relevant and good. We try and build a balanced agenda in terms of new voices and recognized voices, new people in the industry, different faces, that, you know, the whole shebang. We don't always get it right, but we try really hard. Alongside of that, we have a small number, but they're an important number of sponsored presentations, right, from vendors. And we give them some pretty clear guidelines in terms of, you know, talk to us about real world implementation, talk to us about actual problems that actually get solved, help us understand really how the product works, right? And so there are a handful of those, and I really recommend for folks that are either looking at those products or have them in-house or comparing, whatever, it's a really good way to just get some of that information and get a sense of what's going on, right? So not a lot of them, but there are some, and they're worth spending time on. Yeah, I think that's probably it.
Okay, and to wrap up, we only have a few minutes left, so can we go a quick round robin? What's your one piece of advice for people for attending Identiverse? Mine is to take the day after Identiverse off because your brain will be entirely full. Steve, what's your one piece of advice? Really quick. Are you muted?
Well, that's my COVID cough button right there. I was saying that I agree with you, Sarah. You need to decompress, but you need to take notes, and you need to digest what you've heard and put it together and follow through. I'm not the best follower through myself, but meet people and chase them up and take those relationships forward.
Laura?
Hydrate and wear comfy shoes.
Oh, those are good.
And everything everyone else already said.
Yeah.
This is like
Victoria?
a blockchain of advice.
Yeah.
Victoria, best piece of advice?
If you can, get vaccinated and come in person. We need this. We've been locked in, like as identity professionals, we played a key role in enabling life to keep going despite of a lockdown and similar. And we know that like Zoom is amazing. Like we had lots of tools. We managed to move forward. But frankly, I cannot wait to be there in person, to talk with people, to see the people, whether they actually laugh at my jokes or they just write lol, but they are perfectly serious and they are unmoved. I look forward to get my legs under a table with adult beverage, with experts or non-experts, like new people, and talk about these not just within the structured moment of that Zoom, but for this full immersion in which like, I cannot tell you how much I long for that. And I want that for anyone that can. So please come. I want to see you. I want to talk with you. I want to give you a headache telling you about identity and developers and protocols and stuff. So please come.
Yes, I agree with all of those. All right. I think we are at time. Andy, do you want to close us out?
Yeah, I will. Thank you. So hey, I mean, I really want to say thank you, obviously, to you guys for joining us this evening and doing this, and all morning or afternoon or whatever it is. I'm in the UK, so it's evening, it's dark, but it's not the same dark as Steve has. He has the morning dark. Mine's the evening dark. I also want to say thank you to the rest of the content committee. Not everyone can make it today, and obviously the work that they're doing is hugely valuable. And I also want to say thank you to all the speakers, right? They're all busily writing their stuff and, getting complicated deadlines because some of them have to record stuff in advance. And even though they're presenting on site, and some of them are changing because they suddenly find they can go, and others have discovered that maybe they can't go. And so there's a lot of shifting around this year compared to normal years. And we appreciate that work, but I know that everyone that's going to be coming will appreciate that work too. And I like Victoria, right? Like everybody, I'm excited to see everybody. Hopefully, many of you will be able to come in person. That will be awesome. For those of you that can't, and I think this is one of my two pieces of advice, just to answer Sarah's actual question earlier on, is regardless of how you attend, engage, right? Have the conversations with people, meet them. Even if you're attending virtually, there's going to be ways to make that connection with other people, to meet new folks, to learn from peers. I mean, that's what it's there for. So make use of it if you can, and have fun, right? I mean, that's the other thing that's really important about this. And again, regardless of how you are able to attend this year, have a great Identiverse, and we look forward to seeing you. Thank you.